song is one of the songs that my mother used to sing that I grew up with. All right?
Yes.
And that says, no matter what your faith, what your walk in life, you get a breath every morning, you get a brand new day. So when you get up knowing what you believe in and what you're grounded in, everything is okay. We have a special treat for you all today. And I'm going to let you be the judge of what's going to happen next. This is Sierra. So we show Sierra some love.
Hey. I just want to tell the truth, man. See, I just want to tell the truth, man. You're so fly, you're so high. Everybody around you trying to figure out why. You're so cool, you're winning all the time. Cause everywhere you go, man, you get it like a shine. Boy, you're like a magnet, better yet a habit. Everything you wear, people say you gotta have it. From the sweatsuit to the white tee to the Gucci. People probably say people wanna get like me. But what you don't know is when you get home and get behind closed doors, man, she hit the floor. And what you can't see is she on her knees. So the next time you see him, just tell him it's the God in me. Hey, it's the God in me. 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 You're looking so fresh. You're looking so clean. You're looking so sweet. It's the God in me. It's the God in me. There's a voice that cries out in the silence, searching for a heart that will love him, longing for a child that will give him their all, give it all. He wants it all. And there's a God that walks over the earth, searching for a heart that is desperate. He's longing for a child that will give him their all, give it all. He wants it all. And he says, love me with your whole heart. He wants it all today. And serve me with your life now. He wants it all today. And bow down, let go of your idols. He wants it all today. He wants it all today. He wants it all today. He wants it all.
That we are so fortunate and so blessed to have such young talent today.
Yeah.
Everything that we are bringing to you today, we work on is so we can bring you the best of who we are and the best of what talent that we know of. So let us take a breath together. And exhale. Take another breath. And exhale. And as you close your eyes and bow your head in reverence toward your heart, in reverence which that which created us, to that which woke us up this morning, to that watched over us last night as we were in sweet slumber. But the Creator also came to us this day and touched us, and we were awakened to a brand new day. The doors of Unity of Richmond are always open to any race, any creed, or any color. No sexual preference. Everybody is welcome here. That's one of the things that drew me to this church, because it didn't matter that I came from another doctrine. I was seeking something else, something anew. And when I came through these doors many, many years ago, and the reason I keep coming back is because I was made welcome. They welcomed me with open arms. They welcomed me not only with open arms, they welcomed me with an open heart. I have to pay, look, Miss Frances Boyd, Roy's mother, and her friend Jean are here today. They are special visitors here today. All right? Love. So with that being said, I want you all to just sit back and relax. I love this lady. And I love the music that she brings, because she always brings it from her heart and her soul. Miss Katrina Lewis.
I was born by the river in a little tent, and just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change will come. Oh, yes it will. And it's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.
Let's take a breath together. Inhale. And prepare yourself. Close your eyes. And wiggle your butt on the seat so you know you're there. You know you're sitting in that chair, but your back is being held up by the seat that you're sitting in. And the seat that you're sitting in is being held up by the floor, and the floor is being held up by the foundation, and the foundation is being held up by Mother Earth. And we know who created you, the chair, the floor, the ground, and the earth, and that is the Almighty. Well, I have the honor and the privilege to introduce the speaker to you. And I'm not going to go into how many degrees he has or what school he went to and all this other stuff. Y'all already knew that. Because I want to introduce to you a man that I have loved for the last 7 years. And this man, I'd rather not say man, but this spirit, because we all are spiritual beings having a human experience. He has been a part of my life. And we have grown together, physically, emotionally, and most of all, spiritually. And as we have grown together, he's been there when I had struggles. I've been there with him when he had struggles. He's been the shoulder that I have leaned on and that I have come to trust. And I give thanks for it. I don't want to start crying when I do this. But he means a lot to me. And I'm just so blessed to have him in my life, and I'm blessed because I wake up every day with him. And in that waking up, there's always something that either he has to say that he's come up with. I said, oh, did you rest good last night? Did you dream? And he's always greets me in love. And you can never go wrong when you have someone to share your life with, as we have come to know through everything that there is. Not only is he that, he practices what he preaches. And sure, there are struggles, and sometimes he has to go through this and through that. But when he comes back out of the other side of it, I'm there for him, and he's there for me. And most of all, the divine is here for me. So I want you all to give a warm welcome to your speaker, Elroy Boyd III.
Thank you for having me to speak before you this morning. And look, when we begin, as we start this, I'm going to begin with a disclaimer. And with love, with L-O-V-E, I will be this morning what the young people say, keeping it real. Okay? So, I'm going to say some things that need to be said, and also understand that all of this is blanketed in love. So do we understand that?
Yes.
Or we are in accord with that? Wonderful. Well, as you know, that this is African American History Month. This is the annual celebration of remembering those Americans of African heritage who have contributed to the building of the cultural history of this nation. And to these ancestors, we say thank you. And Imaja and I are grateful to celebrate this observance with you at Unity of Richmond this year. And so we would like to thank all of you. Thank you. And how did we get here? Well, all of this started in December of 2018 when we were moving into a new apartment. Now, as I know everyone in here knows, moving is a pain. It is just a pain. And boy, I really thought, wow, it's going to be something, because we were just literally going around the corner. Not so. The week that we were moving, there was a snowstorm, and I caught sick in the middle of moving, and it was just a major mess. Now, after we got situated, after we were all nestled in and enjoying our new dig, so to speak, I had to recover. Some days I didn't have any help. Some days I had to do it by myself. And I was sick, and I was in the snow. My feet will be full of water and ice at the end of the day. It was really something. So I slept. And I slept for a good 3, 4, 5 days. Imaja was staying up all night watching YouTube. In the living room. Okay? And for some reason, she got on sort of the visual cycle. You know how YouTube operates. She got on the visual cycle of the Founding Fathers. And she came across the 1998 film of Thomas Jefferson by Ken Burns. Now, I love Ken Burns. I have the film, but I haven't looked at it in about 20 years. She woke me up one morning. She said, Roy, come over here. You have got to look at this. And it was the portion of the film in which Burns points out some of the disturbing things that Jefferson wrote about the African from his publication, his 1785 publication, Notes on the States of Virginia. Now, some of you probably know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but I am going to be fair this morning. And to be fair, I must state this. Jefferson did constantly speak out against slavery. He did work to gradually end the practice of slavery, while he owned throughout his lifetime 600 enslaved Africans throughout his lifetime. And he freed only 7. In an earlier draft of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, Jefferson wrote to the British King, King George, quote, he has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him. In 1779, he did support gradual emancipation. Now, this proposal meant that he supported the training and colonization of enslaved Africans in lieu of unrestricted emancipation. In 1784, Jefferson proposed federal legislation banning slavery in the new territories of the North and the South after 1800. This proposal failed to pass Congress by 1 vote. Let's go back to the book of Romans, chapter 4, verse 15, where it is written, for the law brings wrath, but where there is no law, there is no transgression. Now, I am going to do something, and I want you to hear me out. I am going to challenge this Paulist philosophy where Paul writes, where there is no law. I am going to be so bold to say unto you that there is a law. Okay? The law is present. The law does exist. It is a universal law, and that law is love. Do you hear it? We have to remember that Jefferson and many of the Founding Fathers were strongly influenced by the philosophy of the Enlightenment. And this philosophy influenced the Founding Fathers' ideas of the two opposing issues, which were African enslavement, and American freedom. Enlightenment thinkers believed that liberty was a natural birthright. So here I'm going to give to you the 4 basic convictions of the European Enlightenment. Number 1, human beings are the source of value, by the implication that the human is the source of value by God. Number 2, reason is sufficient to solve all problems, especially scientific reason. Number 3, while religion may have a place in one's personal life, it is not a good thing for it to be intertwined in public life, especially in decisions that involve the larger community, the larger political community. And number 4, progressivism. The idea that history is the story of human progress. Now, what is interesting here is that the problem with Jefferson and the rest of his Enlightenment contemporaries is very often in their writings, when they are speaking of the human, they are only speaking of the European. Humanity is limited. Now, this can be traced all the way back to Aristotle in 340 BC. Aristotle wrote that while the Greeks are by nature free, hear me out now, while the Greeks are free by nature, barbarians, meaning non-Greeks, are slaves by nature. And because of the conviction that religion or spirituality should not be intertwined in public or political life, responding to the previous century's religious conflict in Europe, and being the precursor of what will later become in this country, the separation between church and state. The idea toward the secularization of religious ideas played a very important part in the religious opposition to the institution of slavery. Now, this was according to the publication Anti-Slavery and the Enlightenment in Early America. Now, despite all of this, there still had to be a justification, a religious justification to uphold the abhorrent practice of slavery. And that justification was through, ladies and gentlemen, Christianity. Most slaveholders identified themselves as Christian. And within the Holy Bible, there were 2 commonly used scriptures to justify their deeds. The first one comes from the 9th chapter of Genesis, verses 18 through 27, which reads, "And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him, and he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." Another biblical example behind the justification of slavery and racism, white supremacy, comes from the Apostle Paul in the 6th chapter of Ephesians, verses 5 through 7. "Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he be received of the Lord, whether he be bond or free." Now, this is just the biblical justification alone. Now, in this instance, in the instance of religion, these colonial gentlemen contradicted themselves by putting into the law of state the religious aspects of slavery and racism, white supremacy. In September 1667, a statute was declared right here in Virginia, right here in Richmond, that the baptism of slaves does not exempt them from bondage. This is the statute. "Partakers of the blessed sacrament of baptism should by virtue of their baptism be made free. It is enacted and declared by this grand assembly and the authority thereof, that the conferring of baptism does not alter the condition of the person as to his bondage or freedom, that diverse masters freed from this doubt may more carefully endeavor the propagation of Christianity by admitted to that sacrament." baptism should make no difference in a slave's condition in life. Christian baptism should not be allowed to threaten human bondage, nor should human bondage be allowed to threaten Christianity. A transgression of the heart and the mind. Just this past December, the Southern Baptist Convention released a 71-page report on the role that racism and their support for slavery played in its origin and growth. A transgression of the heart and the mind. I brought that up because I want to tell you a little something that occurred to me a little more than 25 years ago. In 1993, we were visiting South Carolina, and my father brought me to the Hampton Plantation. Now, this was a plantation about a little more than 30 miles away from Charleston, South Carolina. And my father told me that this was the plantation from where I descended from. This lovely lady here, Frances Pinckney, her namesake comes from Charles Coltsworth Pinckney, a signer of the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. And he was descended from Eliza Lucas Pinckney, a businesswoman in South Carolina who single-handedly turned around the whole indigo industry and made it into a cash crop. Now, I'm going to warn you, I told you, I'm going to say some things that need to be said, okay? Now, there's a funny thing about Mr. Pinckney, Charles Coltsworth Pinckney. He committed what William Robinson once said, a little late-night tipping in the back of the plantation, which is how we are where we are today, okay? Why did I bring that up? I brought that up because Coltsworth Pinckney later became a representative in the lower house of South Carolina, and he agreed to abolish the slave trade in 1808 for the same reason, breeding for economic gain. He changed the law, but he did not change the narrative. Pinckney later went on to oppose emancipation in 1801. Pinckney himself owned 250 enslaved Africans, and his mother was given 50 slaves upon the death of her father. Her father left the remaining slaves to his daughters and nephews. So my ancestors were wedding gifts and bequests by will or legacy. A transgression of the heart and the mind. Before January 1st, 1863, the government of the United States of America noted that it was legal to hold Africans enslaved for perpetuity, meaning perpetually or forever. A transgression of the heart and the mind. And the creating of the Constitution, the government considered enslaved Africans 3/5 of a human being in order to give the southern states and a third more seats in Congress and a third more electoral votes than if the enslaved had been ignored. A transgression of the heart and the mind. In his 1854 Peoria speech, Abraham Lincoln mentioned that the government equated the humanity of the American Negro to a hog owned by its farmer. A transgression of the mind and the heart. Judge Roger Taney, who had heard the Dred Scott decision, declared that no African, free or enslaved, had ever enjoyed the rights of a citizen, and that African Americans are, quote, regarded as beings of an inferior order, altogether unfit to associate with the white race, and so far inferior that they had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. A transgression of the heart and the mind. In the years following the Civil War, the southern states of this country passed the Black Codes, a series of laws passed with the intention of restricting the freedom of the African American, making them work in low-wage jobs and a hard-working labor economy, keeping them from acquiring economic power and education. A transgression of the heart and the mind. Marian Anderson was not allowed to perform at Constitution Hall, prompting Eleanor Roosevelt to resign from the Daughters of the American Revolution. A transgression of the heart and the mind. And my father, God rest his beautiful soul, was enlisted in the 1317 engineering unit from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And it was a segregated unit. And it was a segregated unit because the government would not allow integrated units before Harry Truman. A transgression of the heart and the mind. Carolyn Bennett Dunham claimed in 1955 Emmett Till whistled at her. So what? So her husband and her brother-in-law and other men took Till and lynched him, and his body was left in a grotesque state, witnessed by all the world. 62 years later, Carolyn Bennett told the world she lied, and she's still walking around free. A transgression of the heart and the mind. And now you have police brutality, a transgression of the heart and the mind. So now the question arises, what do we do when we openly admit to a transgression? What do we do when we openly commit a transgression? Well, Hinduism teaches us that while we are on the path, we should know that the universe is running on principles. Universal principles and universal laws of karma governed by the omnipresent divine. So it would behoove us to pursue divine union to the source with great reverence. Whether it is in the form of a spiritual practice as yoga, meditation, affirmative prayer. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna repeatedly emphasized for us to fix our minds upon God. Look at all these beautiful colors. You heard of the United Colors of Benetton? Well, this is the United Colors of God, baby. Okay? And what a wonderful time to recognize this now. What a wonderful time to change the narrative now. This month, February, the month where we can recognize the contributions of African Americans that have been overlooked, suppressed, and ignored from the pages of mainstream history. The writers of history, and especially in our schools. And that can be said when so many states are refusing to have the word slavery in their textbooks. Reverend Beckwith recently stated that this is Black History Month, but America would not be where it is without free labor, baby. This is American History Month.